Spain stands as one of history's most influential nations, a country whose impact has shaped the modern world in profound and lasting ways. From the ancient Roman provinces of Hispania to today's vibrant democracy, Spain's story is one of transformation, conquest, cultural fusion, and enduring legacy. Spain's contributions to global exploration opened new worlds to European civilization. Spanish conquistadors and explorers charted unknown seas, established trade routes that connected continents, and created the first truly global empire in human history. The cultural achievements of Spain reflect a unique fusion of civilizations. Roman engineering, Islamic artistry, and Christian traditions merged to create architectural marvels and artistic innovations that continue to inspire the world today. Spain's political influence extended across 4 continents at the height of its empire. Spanish law, language, and governance systems took root from the Americas to the Philippines, creating institutions that persist to this day. Today's Spain represents the culmination of this remarkable historical journey. A modern European democracy that bridges ancient traditions with contemporary innovation, Spain continues to play a vital role in global affairs. This documentary will take you on a comprehensive journey through Spain's extraordinary history. We will explore the ancient civilizations that first inhabited the Iberian Peninsula, witness the rise and fall of empires, and discover how Spain transformed from a collection of warring kingdoms into a unified nation that changed the world. From the Roman legions that first conquered Hispania to the modern Spanish democracy that leads in renewable energy and European cooperation, Spain's story is one of resilience, adaptation, and enduring influence. Join us as we uncover the forces that shaped a nation and discover how Spain's legacy continues to impact our world today. Before Rome's legions ever set foot on Iberian soil, the peninsula was home to a rich tapestry of indigenous peoples. These were not primitive tribes, but sophisticated societies with distinct cultures, advanced metallurgy, and complex social structures. The Iberian Peninsula was divided among 3 major groups. The Iberians, shown in orange, dominated the eastern and southern coasts. The Celts, in blue, controlled the northwestern regions. And the mysterious Vascones, ancestors of the modern Basques, held the northern mountains. The Iberians were master craftsmen and traders. Their pottery, decorated with intricate geometric patterns, reveals a sophisticated artistic tradition. These vessels were not merely functional, but served ceremonial and social purposes within their communities. Celtic influence brought different traditions to the peninsula. The Celts were renowned metal workers, creating exquisite torques and jewelry. This golden torque, with its intricate dragon-head terminals, demonstrates their mastery of both artistry and metallurgy. These tribes were far from peaceful neighbors. Warfare was common, both for territory and resources. Iberian warriors were formidable fighters, equipped with distinctive weapons and armor. Their military prowess would later impress even the Romans. Individual warriors, like this reconstructed figure, show the typical equipment of an Iberian fighter. Notice the distinctive helmet with its plume, the scale armor, and the characteristic weapons that made these warriors feared throughout the Mediterranean. These peoples built impressive settlements throughout the peninsula. Stone fortifications like these ruins demonstrate their architectural skills and strategic thinking. Hilltop locations provided defense while controlling trade routes and agricultural valleys below. When foreign traders and raiders began arriving from across the Mediterranean, these tribes did not submit easily. Phoenicians, Greeks, and later Carthaginians all encountered fierce resistance. The indigenous peoples fought to maintain their independence and traditional ways of life. Yet these encounters also brought change. Some tribes adapted foreign technologies and ideas while maintaining their core identity. Others were gradually displaced or assimilated. This complex process of cultural interaction would set the stage for the peninsula's next great transformation under Roman rule. In 218 BCE, the Roman Republic launched a campaign that would forever transform the Iberian Peninsula. What began as a strategic move against Carthage would evolve into the complete incorporation of Hispania into the Roman world. The Roman invasion was not merely a military conquest, but the beginning of a profound transformation. Roman generals and administrators established control over the diverse Iberian tribes, bringing with them the full apparatus of Roman civilization. The Romans immediately began an ambitious infrastructure program that would connect Hispania to the broader Roman world. They constructed an extensive network of roads, following precise engineering principles that ensured durability and efficiency. Equally impressive were the Roman aqueducts, engineering marvels that brought fresh water from distant sources to growing cities. These systems included settling tanks, covered channels, and distribution networks that served entire urban populations. Beyond physical infrastructure, Rome brought profound cultural transformation. The Latin language gradually replaced local Iberian dialects, evolving through centuries to become the foundation of modern Spanish. This linguistic evolution was systematic and far-reaching. Roman law became the foundation of Hispanian society, introducing concepts of citizenship, property rights, and legal procedures that would influence Spanish legal traditions for centuries. The Roman legal system provided structure and order to diverse communities. Hispania flourished under Roman rule, becoming one of the empire's most prosperous provinces. Roman cities grew throughout the peninsula, complete with forums, amphitheaters, and all the amenities of Roman urban life. These cities became centers of commerce, culture, and learning. Hispania's integration into the Roman world was so complete that the province produced some of Rome's greatest figures. Emperors Trajan and Hadrian were both born in Hispania, as were the philosopher Seneca and the poet Martial. This intellectual contribution demonstrated Hispania's full participation in Roman civilization. As Roman power weakened in the 5th century, the Iberian Peninsula became a battleground for various Germanic tribes seeking new lands. The Visigoths, originally from Eastern Europe, would emerge as the dominant force, establishing a kingdom that would rule Spain for over 3 centuries. The collapse of Roman authority created a power vacuum filled by competing barbarian groups. The Suevi controlled the northwest, the Vandals held the south, and the Alani occupied central regions. Into this fragmented landscape came the Visigoths, who would gradually unite most of the peninsula under their rule. The Visigoths established their capital first in Toulouse, then later in Toledo. They were skilled warriors and administrators who gradually absorbed Roman governmental practices while maintaining their Germanic traditions. Their kingdom represented a fusion of Roman, Germanic, and Christian elements. Initially, the Visigoths practiced Arian Christianity, which differed from the Catholic faith of their Roman subjects. This religious divide created tension and instability. However, in 589 CE, King Ricard converted to Catholicism, unifying the kingdom under one faith and strengthening royal authority. The Visigoths made lasting contributions to Spanish law and governance. Their legal code, the Liber Judiciorum, combined Roman law with Germanic customs. This comprehensive legal system influenced Spanish jurisprudence for centuries and helped establish principles of justice that would endure long after their kingdom fell. Despite their achievements, the Visigothic kingdom faced constant challenges. Internal succession disputes weakened royal authority, while external pressures from the Byzantine Empire and Frankish kingdoms threatened their borders. These conflicts would ultimately leave them vulnerable to the Islamic invasion of 711 CE, which would end their 3-century rule over Spain. The Visigothic period established crucial foundations for Spanish identity. Their fusion of Roman administrative practices, Germanic traditions, and Christian faith created a unique cultural synthesis. Their legal codes, architectural styles, and governmental structures influenced the development of medieval Spain and contributed to the complex identity that would emerge in the centuries following the Islamic conquest. In the year 711 CE, a momentous event would forever change the course of Iberian history. The Umayyad Caliphate, expanding westward from Damascus, set its sights on the Visigothic kingdom across the narrow Strait of Gibraltar. The invasion began when Tariq ibn Ziyad, a Berber general serving the Umayyad governor of North Africa, crossed the strait with approximately 7,000 troops, landing near the rock that would later bear his name, Jabal Tariq, or Gibraltar. The Conquest Routes map reveals the remarkable speed and coordination of the Islamic expansion. Different colored lines show the campaigns of various leaders. Tariq's initial thrust, followed by Musa ibn Nusayr's reinforcements and Abd al-Aziz's consolidation efforts. Within just 3 years, the Islamic forces had conquered most of the Iberian Peninsula. The Visigothic kingdom, weakened by internal strife and succession disputes, offered little effective resistance to the well-organized and motivated Muslim armies. The conquered territory became known as Al-Andalus, derived from the Arabic name for the Vandals who had previously occupied parts of the region. This new Islamic state would become one of the most sophisticated civilizations in medieval Europe. One of the most remarkable aspects of early Al-Andalus was its policy of religious tolerance. Muslims, Christians, and Jews were allowed to coexist, each maintaining their own religious practices and communities under Islamic rule. The architectural and cultural achievements of Al-Andalus would soon become legendary. Islamic art and architecture, with its intricate geometric patterns and soaring arches, began to transform the landscape of Iberia, creating a unique blend of Islamic, Christian, and Jewish influences. By 714 CE, Al-Andalus had emerged as a powerful Islamic state that would endure for nearly 8 centuries. The conquest had not only changed the political map of Iberia, but had also set the stage for one of history's most remarkable periods of cultural exchange and intellectual achievement. In the heart of Islamic Spain, 2 cities emerged as beacons of learning and culture that would illuminate the medieval world. Córdoba and Granada became centers of unprecedented intellectual achievement, where scholars from across the known world gathered to advance human knowledge. Córdoba, the capital of the Umayyad Caliphate in Al-Andalus, became known as the jewel of the world. By the 10th century, it rivaled Baghdad and Constantinople as one of the largest and most sophisticated cities on earth, home to nearly 500,000 inhabitants. The Great Mosque of Córdoba, known as the Mezquita, stands as one of the most magnificent examples of Islamic architecture. Its forest of horseshoe arches and intricate geometric patterns created a space that seemed to stretch into infinity, inspiring both worshippers and visitors from across the medieval world. Islamic scholars in Córdoba made revolutionary advances in mathematics, astronomy, and medicine. They preserved and expanded upon Greek and Roman knowledge while making original discoveries that would later fuel the European Renaissance. The astrolabe, perfected here, became an essential tool for navigation and astronomical observation. Medical knowledge flourished under Islamic rule. Scholars translated and improved upon ancient texts while developing new surgical instruments and techniques. Their medical manuscripts, written in Arabic, contained detailed illustrations of surgical procedures and anatomical studies that were centuries ahead of their time. As Córdoba's influence waned, Granada emerged as the final jewel of Islamic Spain. The Nasrid dynasty created the magnificent Alhambra Palace complex, a masterpiece of Islamic art and architecture that combined functionality with breathtaking beauty. Its intricate geometric patterns and flowing water features created an earthly paradise. The Court of the Lions exemplifies the pinnacle of Islamic architectural achievement. 12 marble lions support a central fountain, surrounded by delicate columns and arches adorned with intricate calligraphy and geometric patterns. This courtyard represents the Islamic vision of paradise, where water, light, and mathematical precision create perfect harmony. Beyond architecture and science, Islamic Spain fostered a rich literary tradition. Poets wrote in Arabic, Hebrew, and Romance languages, creating works that influenced literature across Europe. Philosophical treatises and historical chronicles preserved knowledge and promoted intellectual exchange between different cultures and religions. The legacy of Islamic Spain's intellectual achievements cannot be overstated. From Córdoba's libraries to Granada's architectural marvels, these centers of learning preserved ancient wisdom while pioneering new discoveries. Their contributions to mathematics, science, medicine, and culture laid the foundation for the European Renaissance and continue to inspire scholars today. Following the Islamic conquest of 711, small Christian kingdoms survived in the mountainous regions of northern Spain. These kingdoms would begin a centuries-long campaign known as the Reconquista, the reconquest of Iberian lands from Muslim rule. The political landscape of early medieval Iberia was complex. In the north, Christian kingdoms of Leon, Castile, Navarre, Aragon, and the emerging Portugal controlled mountainous territories, while the powerful Al-Andalus dominated the fertile southern regions. The Reconquista began not as a coordinated campaign, but as local resistance. In 718, at Covadonga in Asturias, a Visigothic nobleman named Pelayo achieved the first significant Christian victory against Muslim forces, establishing the Kingdom of Asturias. The early Christian resistance was driven by multiple motivations. Religious fervor played a role, as Christians sought to reclaim lands for Christendom. However, political ambition, territorial expansion, and economic opportunities were equally important driving forces. Christian military strategies evolved over time. Early campaigns relied on guerrilla warfare in mountainous terrain. As kingdoms grew stronger, they employed siege warfare, cavalry charges, and coordinated attacks. The construction of fortified towns and castles secured conquered territories. Muslim forces, initially caught off guard by Christian resistance, adapted their own strategies. Al-Andalus employed professional armies, advanced siege techniques, and diplomatic alliances. They fortified key cities and used their superior numbers and resources to counter Christian advances. The Reconquista progressed slowly over centuries. By 801, Charlemagne's forces had taken Barcelona, establishing the Spanish March. The Kingdom of Leon expanded southward, while Castile emerged as a powerful force. Each generation of Christian rulers pushed the frontier further south, gradually reducing Muslim territory. The early Reconquista established patterns that would define Spanish history for centuries. Religious identity became intertwined with political power, military orders emerged to support the campaigns, and the frontier society developed unique characteristics that would shape Spanish culture and institutions. In 1469, a marriage would change the course of Spanish history forever. Ferdinand of Aragon and Isabella of Castile, known as the Catholic monarchs, would unite Spain's most powerful kingdoms and establish the foundation of a global empire. Isabella of Castile was a formidable ruler who inherited the throne of Castile in 1474. Known for her intelligence, piety, and determination, she would prove to be one of Europe's most influential monarchs. Ferdinand of Aragon brought his own strengths to the Union. A skilled diplomat and military strategist, he expanded Aragonese influence in the Mediterranean and proved instrumental in Spain's territorial consolidation. Their marriage created a powerful dynastic union that consolidated Christian Spain. The combined coat of arms symbolized this unity, featuring the castles of Castile, the lions of Leon, and the stripes of Aragon under the imperial eagle. The Catholic monarchs established the Spanish Inquisition in 1478, a religious tribunal that sought to maintain Catholic orthodoxy throughout their realms. This institution would become one of the most controversial aspects of their reign, targeting conversos, Muslims, and other religious minorities. Perhaps most famously, Isabella and Ferdinand sponsored Christopher Columbus's voyage to the Americas in 1492. This decision would transform Spain into a global empire and change the course of world history. By the end of their reign, Ferdinand and Isabella had unified most of the Iberian Peninsula under their rule. Their territorial consolidation laid the foundation for modern Spain and established the framework for centuries of Spanish dominance. The Catholic monarchs left an indelible mark on Spanish history. Their reign established Spain as a unified Catholic kingdom, launched the age of Spanish exploration, and created the institutional framework that would govern Spain for centuries to come. Following the unification of Spain in 1492, the Catholic monarchs turned their attention beyond the Iberian Peninsula. Spain was poised to become the driving force behind a new age of global exploration that would reshape the world. At the center of this ambitious expansion was Christopher Columbus, a Genoese navigator whose bold proposal would change history. Columbus believed he could reach the Indies by sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean. Columbus assembled a fleet of 3 ships, the Santa Maria, the Pinta, and the Nina. These caravels were specifically designed for long ocean voyages, combining speed with cargo capacity. On October 12, 1492, after more than 2 months at sea, Columbus and his crew made landfall in the Bahamas. This historic voyage opened the Americas to European exploration and marked the beginning of Spain's global empire. Columbus would make 3 more voyages to the New World, exploring the Caribbean islands, the Central American coast, and parts of South America. His discoveries sparked a wave of Spanish exploration across the Atlantic. Following Columbus, a new generation of Spanish explorers ventured into the Americas. Between 1519 and 1598, Spanish expeditions mapped vast territories from Florida to Mexico, establishing the foundation of Spain's colonial empire. By the end of the 16th century, Spain had established claims across vast territories in the Americas. From the Caribbean islands to the Pacific coast, Spanish exploration had created the largest empire the world had ever seen, fundamentally altering global trade, culture, and politics. The conquistadors were Spanish adventurers and soldiers who spearheaded one of history's most dramatic expansions of empire. Driven by gold, glory, and God, these men would transform the Americas forever. Hernán Cortés arrived in Mexico in 1519 with just 600 men, facing the mighty Aztec Empire that ruled over millions. The Aztecs controlled a vast territory from their magnificent capital of Tenochtitlan. Tenochtitlan was one of the world's largest cities, built on an island in Lake Texcoco. Its pyramids, canals, and markets amazed the Spanish, who compared it to Venice. Yet Cortés was determined to conquer this magnificent civilization. The Spanish had significant advantages: horses, steel weapons, gunpowder, and most devastatingly, diseases like smallpox that decimated indigenous populations. They also exploited existing rivalries between Aztec subjects and enemies. After a brutal siege lasting months, Tenochtitlan fell in 1521. The Aztec Empire, which had dominated central Mexico for centuries, was destroyed. Cortés established Spanish rule over the former Aztec territories. Meanwhile, Francisco Pizarro set his sights on the Inca Empire in South America. The Incas ruled the largest empire in pre-Columbian America, stretching along the Andes from Ecuador to Chile. In 1532, Pizarro captured the Inca emperor Atahualpa through treachery at Cajamarca. Despite receiving a room filled with gold as ransom, Pizarro executed the emperor and seized control of the empire. The Spanish established a vast colonial empire across the Americas. They imposed their language, religion, and administrative systems while extracting enormous wealth in gold and silver. This colonial expansion would shape the Americas for centuries to come. The 16th and 17th centuries marked Spain's golden age, when the Spanish Empire reached the height of its economic and political power, dominating global trade and European politics. At its zenith, the Spanish Empire was the first global empire in history. Spanish territories stretched across 4 continents, from the Americas to Europe, Africa, and Asia, making it the largest empire the world had ever seen. The foundation of Spanish wealth came from the treasure fleets that carried vast quantities of silver and gold from the Americas to Spain. These galleons transported an estimated 200 tons of gold and 16,000 tons of silver during the colonial period. Political dominance was secured through the Habsburg dynasty, which ruled Spain from 1516 to 1700. The Spanish Habsburgs controlled not only Spain and its colonies, but also the Holy Roman Empire, the Netherlands, and parts of Italy. This economic prosperity fueled an unprecedented cultural flowering known as the Siglo de Oro, or Golden Century. Literature reached new heights with Miguel de Cervantes, whose Don Quixote became the world's first modern novel. In the visual arts, Diego Velázquez revolutionized painting with his masterful portraits and complex compositions, while El Greco developed a distinctive style that combined Byzantine traditions with Renaissance techniques. The Spanish Golden Age established cultural standards that influenced all of Europe and the Americas. Spanish became a global language, Spanish art set new standards for realism and expression, and Spanish literature explored themes of honor, love, and human nature that remain relevant today. By 1650, Spain had achieved something unprecedented in human history, a global empire that combined military might, economic wealth, and cultural brilliance. This golden age represented the pinnacle of Spanish power and influence in world affairs. The death of Charles II of Spain in 1700, without an heir, triggered one of Europe's most devastating conflicts. The War of Spanish Succession would reshape the continent's balance of power and establish a new dynasty in Spain. Charles II's will named Philip of Anjou, grandson of Louis XIV of France, as his successor. However, this threatened to unite the French and Spanish crowns under Bourbon rule, alarming other European powers who supported Archduke Charles of Austria. Philip of Anjou became Philip V of Spain, but his claims sparked immediate opposition. European powers feared French hegemony and formed the Grand Alliance to prevent Bourbon dominance. The conflict divided Europe into two major camps. The Bourbon Alliance, shown in blue, supported Philip's claim and included France, Spain, and Bavaria. The Grand Alliance, in red, backed Archduke Charles and comprised Britain, Austria, Prussia, and the Netherlands. The war raged across multiple theaters for 13 years. Key battles like Blenheim and Ramillies demonstrated the military genius of commanders like the Duke of Marlborough, while Spanish victories at Almansa showed Bourbon resilience. The Treaty of Utrecht ended the war and established a new European order. Philip V was recognized as King of Spain, but the French and Spanish crowns were forever separated. Britain gained strategic territories, while Austria received the Spanish Netherlands. The Bourbon dynasty implemented sweeping reforms to modernize Spain's administration and economy. The Nueva Planta decrees centralized power, abolishing regional privileges and creating a unified system. Colonial administration was also restructured to improve efficiency and revenue collection. The Bourbon reforms laid the foundation for Spain's recovery in the 18th century. By centralizing administration, improving tax collection, and modernizing colonial governance, the new dynasty began reversing Spain's decline and preparing for future challenges. The War of Spanish Succession fundamentally transformed both Spain and Europe. While the conflict devastated the continent, it established the Bourbon dynasty and initiated reforms that would modernize Spanish governance for generations to come. In 1808, Napoleon Bonaparte made a fateful decision that would forever change the course of Spanish history. His invasion of the Iberian Peninsula would trigger 6 years of brutal warfare and spark a national resistance movement that would define modern Spain. The Peninsular War, fought from 1808 to 1814, engulfed the entire Iberian Peninsula. This map shows the extensive battlefields that would witness some of the most savage fighting in European history. Napoleon's pretext for invasion was the ongoing conflict between Spain and Portugal. Under the Treaty of Fontainebleau, French troops were allowed passage through Spain to attack Portugal. However, Napoleon had far grander ambitions for the Spanish throne. The Spanish royal family was in chaos. King Charles IV abdicated in favor of his son Ferdinand VII, but Napoleon forced both to renounce their claims. He then placed his own brother Joseph Bonaparte on the Spanish throne, triggering outrage across the peninsula. On May 2, 1808, the people of Madrid rose in spontaneous rebellion against French occupation. This violent uprising, immortalized in Goya's paintings, marked the beginning of a national resistance that would consume Spain for 6 years. The Spanish response was unlike anything Napoleon had encountered. Rather than conventional armies, Spain erupted in guerrilla warfare. Small bands of fighters, including peasants, priests, and former soldiers, used hit-and-run tactics to harass French forces across the peninsula. The war produced legendary figures on both sides. The Duke of Wellington led British and Portuguese forces, while Spanish generals like Francisco Espoz y Mina became heroes of the resistance. The conflict saw major battles at Bailén, Talavera, and ultimately the decisive campaigns that drove the French from Spain. The Peninsular War devastated Spain and fundamentally weakened royal authority. The conflict killed hundreds of thousands, destroyed cities, and created a power vacuum that would plague Spain for decades. However, it also forged a new sense of Spanish nationalism and demonstrated the power of popular resistance against foreign occupation. By 1814, Napoleon's forces were finally expelled from Spain, but the country emerged forever changed. The Peninsular War had introduced concepts of popular sovereignty and national resistance that would echo throughout the 19th century, setting the stage for Spain's turbulent modern history. By 1800, Spain controlled the largest colonial empire in the Americas, stretching from Mexico to Argentina. But this vast dominion was about to crumble as independence movements swept across Latin America. The independence movements began in earnest around 1810, triggered by Napoleon's invasion of Spain and the resulting power vacuum. Revolutionary leaders emerged across the continent, each fighting to liberate their homeland from Spanish rule. The independence timeline shows the rapid succession of liberation movements. Haiti led the way in 1804, followed by Mexico's uprising in 1810, and then a cascade of independence declarations throughout South America between 1816 and 1825. The impact on Spain was catastrophic. The loss of these colonies meant the end of centuries of wealth flowing from American silver mines and trade. Spain's economy, which had depended heavily on colonial revenues, faced severe decline. Politically, Spain's global influence collapsed almost overnight. From being the dominant world power for 3 centuries, Spain was reduced to a regional European nation. The newly independent Latin American countries would forge their own paths, often looking to Britain and France rather than their former colonial master. The Latin American independence movements marked the end of Spain's golden age and the beginning of a new era in world history. These newly independent nations would go on to develop their own unique identities, while Spain struggled to adapt to its diminished role on the global stage. The 19th century brought unprecedented instability to Spain. Following the devastation of the Napoleonic Wars, the country struggled with political upheaval, economic transformation, and ideological conflicts that would reshape the nation. The Liberal Revolution of 1820 marked the beginning of this turbulent era. Colonel Rafael del Riego led a military uprising that forced King Ferdinand II to restore the liberal constitution of 1812, introducing constitutional monarchy to Spain. The death of Ferdinand VII in 1833 triggered the First Carlist War, a brutal civil conflict over succession. His brother Carlos claimed the throne, rejecting the succession of Ferdinand's infant daughter Isabella, supported by her mother Maria Cristina as regent. The 1848 revolutions that swept across Europe also influenced Spain, though the country experienced its own unique form of political upheaval. Liberal and republican ideas gained momentum as traditional monarchical authority faced increasing challenges. Economic hardship plagued Spanish society throughout the century. Traditional agricultural systems struggled to modernize, while industrial development lagged behind other European nations. Many families faced poverty and displacement as the old economic order crumbled. The rise of liberalism and republicanism challenged traditional Spanish society. New political assemblies emerged, advocating for constitutional government, individual rights, and democratic reforms that would fundamentally alter Spain's political landscape. Political cartoons of the era captured the tension between monarchical tradition and republican ideals. The struggle between old and new forms of government became a defining characteristic of 19th century Spanish politics. Military conflicts and revolutionary uprisings became commonplace as different factions fought for control. The century was marked by repeated attempts to establish stable government, each met with resistance and counter-revolution. The culmination of this century of instability came with the Glorious Revolution of 1868, which finally deposed Isabella II and ushered in a brief period of democratic experimentation. This revolution represented the triumph of liberal ideals over traditional monarchy, setting the stage for Spain's continued political evolution. By 1936, Spain stood on the precipice of civil war. Political tensions between left and right had reached a breaking point, setting the stage for one of the most devastating conflicts in Spanish history. On July 17, 1936, a military uprising led by General Francisco Franco began in Spanish Morocco. Within days, the rebellion spread to mainland Spain, dividing the nation into 2 irreconcilable camps. The conflict divided Spain along ideological lines. The Republicans, supporting the democratically elected Second Spanish Republic, faced the Nationalists, a coalition of military officers, conservatives, monarchists, and fascists led by Franco. The war quickly escalated into a brutal conflict that drew international attention and intervention. Germany and Italy supported Franco's nationalists, while the Soviet Union aided the Republicans. International volunteers formed brigades to fight for the Republic. The war's progression can be seen through the changing territorial control. Initially, both sides controlled significant territory, but gradually the nationalists gained ground, squeezing Republican forces into smaller enclaves. The war's brutality shocked the world. The bombing of Guernica in 1937 by German and Italian aircraft supporting Franco became a symbol of the conflict's horror, immortalized in Pablo Picasso's famous painting. Both sides used extensive propaganda to rally support. As the war progressed, Franco's superior military organization and international backing proved decisive. By early 1939, Republican resistance collapsed. The Spanish Civil War ended with Franco's complete victory, establishing a dictatorship that would last nearly 4 decades. The conflict served as a prelude to World War II and left Spain deeply scarred, with divisions that would take generations to heal. Following the devastating Civil War, Francisco Franco established one of Europe's longest-lasting dictatorships. From 1939 to 1975, Spain would endure nearly 4 decades of authoritarian rule that fundamentally transformed Spanish society. Francisco Franco emerged from the Civil War as Spain's undisputed leader. The Generalissimo, as he styled himself, quickly moved to consolidate absolute power and eliminate all opposition. Franco's regime was built on systematic political repression. The dictatorship banned all political parties except the Falange, established a secret police force, and implemented strict censorship laws that controlled every aspect of public discourse. Franco pursued a policy of economic autarky, seeking to make Spain self-sufficient and isolated from the international community. This economic nationalism led to severe shortages, rationing, and years of economic stagnation known as the Hunger Years. The Franco regime systematically suppressed regional cultures and languages. Catalan, Basque, and Galician were banned from public use. The government imposed strict censorship on literature, films, and all forms of artistic expression, creating a climate of cultural uniformity. Franco's regime employed extensive propaganda to maintain control. The state promoted a vision of traditional Catholic Spain using symbols, rallies, and mass media to indoctrinate the population and suppress dissent. Franco commissioned massive construction projects to glorify his regime, most notably the Valle de los Caídos. This enormous monument, built largely by political prisoners, served as both a tomb for Civil War dead and a symbol of Franco's power. Despite the repression, resistance persisted throughout Franco's rule. Underground movements, exile communities, and later student protests challenged the dictatorship. Many intellectuals and artists fled Spain, creating a significant brain drain that impoverished Spanish culture. By the 1960s, Franco's regime began to liberalize economically while maintaining political control. The Spanish miracle brought rapid economic growth, but political repression continued until Franco's death in 1975, ending nearly 4 decades of dictatorship. November 20th, 1975, marked the end of an era in Spanish history. After nearly 4 decades of authoritarian rule, Francisco Franco's death opened the door to one of the most remarkable democratic transitions in modern European history. King Juan Carlos I, handpicked by Franco as his successor, surprised many by choosing the path of democracy over continued authoritarianism. Despite being groomed to maintain the regime, the young king became the architect of Spain's peaceful transition to democracy. Adolfo Suárez, appointed prime minister in 1976, became the key political figure orchestrating the transition. His government passed the political reform law, which effectively dismantled the Francoist system from within and paved the way for democratic elections. June 15, 1977, witnessed Spain's first free elections in over 40 years. The Union of the Democratic Center, led by Suárez, won a plurality, while the Spanish Socialist Workers' Party emerged as the main opposition. These elections legitimized the new democratic system and gave Spaniards their first taste of political choice in decades. The crowning achievement of the transition was the Constitution of 1978. Drafted through consensus among all major political parties, this document established Spain as a constitutional monarchy with a parliamentary system. It guaranteed fundamental rights, recognized regional autonomies, and created the framework for modern democratic Spain. By 1978, Spain had successfully transformed from a military dictatorship to a stable parliamentary democracy. The transition, known as the Spanish model, became an example for other countries emerging from authoritarian rule. This peaceful transformation laid the foundation for Spain's integration into the European community and its emergence as a modern democratic state. In 1986, Spain achieved a historic milestone that would fundamentally transform its economy and society. After decades of isolation under Franco's dictatorship, Spain joined the European Economic Community, marking the beginning of an unprecedented economic resurgence. EU membership brought immediate access to the European single market, opening Spanish businesses to over 300 million consumers. This integration catalyzed a dramatic economic transformation, with Spain experiencing rapid GDP growth throughout the late 1980s and 1990s. EU structural funds revolutionized Spain's infrastructure. Billions of euros flowed into transportation networks, telecommunications, and energy systems. High-speed rail lines connected major cities, modern highways crisscrossed the peninsula, and ports were modernized to handle increased trade volumes. Trade relationships were completely transformed. Spain became deeply integrated into European supply chains, with Germany and France emerging as major trading partners. Spanish exports diversified from traditional agricultural products to include automobiles, machinery, and high-tech goods. The impact on Spanish living standards was profound. Real wages increased significantly, unemployment fell dramatically, and access to education and healthcare improved. Spain transformed from a developing economy into a modern European nation, with living standards approaching those of its northern neighbors. By the early 2000s, Spain had completed its remarkable transformation. The country that had once been isolated and economically backward was now a dynamic member of the European Union, contributing to European integration while benefiting from shared prosperity. This economic resurgence laid the foundation for Spain's modern role as a key player in European affairs. In the 21st century, Spain has emerged as a key player in European politics and global diplomacy, while navigating complex internal challenges and embracing new opportunities for growth and cultural renewal. Spain's integration into the European Union has transformed the nation into an influential voice in European affairs. As one of the EU's largest economies, Spain plays a crucial role in shaping European policy and maintaining strong diplomatic ties across the globe. Spain's political landscape reflects the complexity of modern democracy. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez leads a coalition government, navigating a fragmented parliament where multiple parties must work together to address the nation's challenges. One of Spain's most persistent challenges involves regional autonomy, particularly in Catalonia. The independence movement continues to shape Spanish politics, with ongoing debates about amnesty laws and the balance between regional self-governance and national unity. The Basque Country represents another model of regional autonomy within Spain. With its distinct language, culture, and significant self-governance, the Basque provinces demonstrate how regional identity can coexist within the Spanish state framework. Spain's economy shows remarkable resilience in the 21st century. With growth rates exceeding the European average, declining unemployment, and strategic investments in renewable energy, Spain is positioning itself as a leader in Europe's economic recovery. Contemporary Spain is experiencing a vibrant cultural renaissance alongside active social movements. From feminist activism to environmental advocacy, Spanish civil society plays a crucial role in shaping the nation's future while preserving its rich cultural heritage. As Spain navigates the complexities of the 21st century, the nation continues to balance tradition with innovation, regional diversity with national unity, and domestic priorities with European responsibilities. These challenges also represent opportunities for Spain to lead by example in democratic governance and sustainable development. From the ancient tribes of Iberia to today's vibrant democracy, Spain's journey through history has left an indelible mark on our world. As we conclude this exploration, we reflect on the enduring influence of a nation that has shaped global culture, language, and civilization for over 2 millennia. Spain's influence spans multiple dimensions of human civilization. The Spanish language connects over 500 million people across continents. The age of exploration opened new worlds and connected distant cultures. Spain's peaceful transition to democracy became a model for nations worldwide. and Spanish culture continues to enrich global art, architecture, and traditions. Today's Spain embodies this rich heritage while embracing modernity. From the architectural wonders of Barcelona to the passionate rhythms of flamenco, Spain's cultural vibrancy continues to captivate the world. Spain's commitment to European integration represents a cornerstone of its modern identity. As a founding member of the European project, Spain has embraced cooperation, democracy, and shared prosperity. Spain today leads Europe in economic growth, pioneers renewable energy solutions, attracts millions through cultural tourism, and champions democratic values both at home and abroad. These achievements reflect a nation that has learned from its past while building toward a sustainable future. As Spain moves forward, it carries the wisdom of centuries and the energy of innovation. From the Roman roads of Hispania to the digital highways of the 21st century, Spain continues to bridge past and future, tradition and progress, local identity and global citizenship. Spain's story is far from over. A nation shaped by diversity, resilience, and hope continues to inspire the world. From the ancient wisdom of Al-Andalus to the modern innovations of today, Spain remains a beacon of cultural richness, democratic values, and human achievement. The legacy endures and the future beckons with promise.